Welcome to Candid Conversation, zoomed in and comments video channel. My name is Cliff, and we're doing another episode today. I have a really interesting guest today to talk to us about a very hot topic. Of course, it's really hot because it's still going on, even though we may think it's cooled off. It's not. We're talking about Islamophobia, Muslims, and the like. And my guest today is Eric Brazau. He's a renowned author and definitely a very controversial in some ways kind of guy, right? I would think, because he's really been out there pushing some interesting narratives, and we're going to dive into that this morning. Eric, thank you very much for jumping in and doing a conversation today.
My pleasure to be here, Clifford.
Yeah, so one of the things that I looked at was the profile, and it kind of struck me as an interesting thought when I saw this, looking at it from this perspective. Islam, not a Muslim, nor is a Muslim Islam. What do you mean by that when we dive into that? What does that mean?
Good question. Thank you, Clifford. We're starting off on the right foot. Well, similarly, a communist is not communism, and a communist is not communism. So, a good Muslim or a bad Muslim or a happy Muslim or a sad Muslim is not Islam. And Islam is not necessarily what a Muslim is. I mean, a Muslim is an individual person who can believe whatever he likes to whatever extent that he believes. So many people confuse Muslims with Islam. So they would say, well, I know Islam or I know about Islam. And if I were to ask them why, they would say, well, my next door neighbor is a Muslim. But you know your next door neighbor who's the Muslim, that doesn't mean that you know Islam. Because perhaps your next door neighbor is a fallen Muslim. Or someone will say, I know some Muslims who they drink a little bit of alcohol and they listen to music and he doesn't have a beard. Okay. But Islam mandates growing beards, staying away absolutely from alcohol, and forbidding music. So you cannot conflate the two. So I use the example, if I was in an elevator and I met a man who was a Buddhist, and that very morning his dog died, his wife left him, he went bankrupt, who knows? And he was in a bad mood. As you can well understand, he would be having all these calamities. Does that mean Buddhism itself is a unfriendly, grouchy religion or a philosophy? Maybe not. Similarly, I can come across a very pleasant, lady who bakes cookies and gives them to the kindergarten, but she's a card-carrying member of the Nazi Party. Does that mean because she's a nice person that I like, that's representative of what the Nazi Party stands for? And that I should like Nazism because I like a lady who happens to be a Nazi? Not necessarily. Clear?
Yeah, that's clear. It's basically uh, they aren't what we think they are supposed to be.
Well, no,
Uh,
they actually are, but they're two different things.
okay.
A person who's, for example, I could say I'm a Christian.
Hmm.
And if I were having a good day, then I
Hmm.
would be a good person or a nice person. Or if I were having a bad day, I'd be a grouchy person. I'd be short-tempered. But that has nothing to do with Christianity itself.
Right.
Christianity is a complete, it's a religion, it's an ideology, it's contained in the scriptures.
Hmm. So
So
it is the same with the Muslims.
with Islam,
With
so you have
Islam.
a Muslim and then you have Islam. They're two different things.
So can you explain what a Muslim is versus what Islam is? What is that? Because to me, I think, like you say, we tend to generalize and we actually make Islam Muslim. So
Well,
what's the difference between the two?
I just explained. A Muslim is a person who may believe in much of what Islam espouses, or he may believe in a certain aspect of Islam, or he may be a fallen Muslim. He may pray 3 times a day as opposed to 5 times a day. Who knows what his level of commitment is to the Islamic doctrine? We don't know that. But the Islamic doctrine is very clear, at least to 90% of Muslims in the world, the Islamic doctrine is a Sunni type of interpretation of what Islam is supposed to be.
Okay. So there's Shia and there's Sunni in the Muslim world. What's the difference between these two as opposed to what we generally think of?
Um, for all intensive purposes, for most people and for Western civilization, it doesn't mean that much. So, for example, the three caliphs, Omar, Uthman, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, are the best generation, the original Sahaba, the
Mhm.
companions of the Prophet Muhammad. The fourth caliph was Ali, and now he was a Shia. Basically, people thought that he should have been the original caliph because they thought that um, the kingship, if you like, was hereditary, and it was going to go from Prophet Muhammad to Ali. And other people said, no, it's not a hereditary kingship. We have to vote on it. And so that was the first, basically, the original schism in Islam. Ultimately, you had wars in politics, and there's certain aspects of the Quran, or I should say Hadith, especially,
Mhm.
that are not followed or not seen as authentic books to be respected by the Shia, and they have their own, like, some doctrine that you cannot be found in a Sunni scholarship.
Oh,
But
okay.
as far as we are concerned, when I say Western civilization, the growing of the beard, the not listening to music, the drinking alcohol, dancing, everything that you consider Western civilization, art, portraying art, human figures, all of that is verboten to all Islam, or to Sunni and Shia.
I see. Okay. So even trying to draw the Prophet Muhammad, bad idea. Women
Y-
have, yeah,
Yeah,
women,
separate entrances, all of that different. Cannot go there.
yeah, and it's the same even like what's also interesting too is you see women with different headdress. Some I've even seen here in Hamilton women wearing the burqa, and I was like, that's wild. But we think of all Muslims as that one thing. They're particularly with the women, they wear the headscarf or they wear a full burqa, and it's all the same. But is that really true? Is that really the case, or is that just basically um, so some of the
It's a question of degrees.
mhm,
Um, and the difference, so in Islam, it's as opposed to Christianity and maybe some other philosophy religions, it's a spiritual inner relationship that you have with God. In Islam, what you show on the outside is very important. What are your deeds are very important.
mhm,
So the idea is that the Prophet Muhammad, this is in the Quran, and apparently in the Hadith, after the Prophet Muhammad died, his wives were, quote unquote, were supposed to never leave the house ever.
wow.
They were never got married again. And
Hmm.
some of his wives, like Aisha, was like 22 years old, or who knows how old she was. She could never marry again. Men had to speak to them behind a curtain; they could never be seen, etc. And so, in the Quran, somewhere, it's good for your daughters, your wives, and the women of the Prophet, and something. So that's taken to mean all the women of Islam must be like the wives of the Prophet Muhammad. So they should never leave the house except when absolutely necessary. To leave the house, they need permission, and when they leave the house, they should be completely covered. Now, here in Vancouver, Rashid gave a lecture very clearly. He spoke on some. This was 10 years ago, before on a TV show. When a woman leaves the house, she should be completely covered, and it's not necessary for her to cover her face. It's preferable, but it's not necessary. However, if she's young and pretty, and men will, be like notice that she's a pretty woman. Well, then she should cover her face to avoid unattention. And then there's other imams who say, no, it's not preferable. It's mandatory to cover your face.
Hence
And
this.
then there's others who say, and there's even a school of thought that says only one eye needs to be seen because you only need one eye to see where you're going. You don't need two eyes. So there's degrees. So when you hear the Taliban or ISIS or some of these in Afghanistan, Pakistan, or in Syria right now, they've mandated that women can no longer leave the house and must be completely covered. That is an element of Islam.
And that's really I guess as you put it, the schism in Islam that is out there. There's so many different degrees, as you pointed out.
My first book, Muslim Reformers versus Fundamentalists, is the two, if we want, the two voices within Islam that are battling for the soul of the community. There are those who say, like, for example, Irshad Manji, Canadian woman, she's about 40 years old, maybe 50. She identifies as a lesbian and a Muslim. She doesn't wear a hijab. She's very modern looking. Obviously, she's a lesbian, so you can't be much more modern than that. But she identifies as a Muslim. And on the other extreme, you have, if we want to call the imam who's got a big long beard. They don't eat with the left hand because eating with your left hand is the call of Satan, of course. And so everything that we would call, side like ISIS, Al Qaeda, what we would call extremist Islam, there are many of these imams who espouse that. So the nice people in Canada and in the West, they support Irshad Manji, Rahil Raza, Tariq Fatah, like they support the nice modern Muslims who want to reform Islam to represent a new religion that's compatible with Western democracy. The problem is, whenever Irshad Manji has a meeting to talk about her version of Islam, the only people who attend it are Western liberals in an auditorium, but no Muslims go to attend it. Now, when the other imams, somebody like Bilal Phillips, Hakim Quick, who are on the other side of the equation, who forbid music, forbid eating with your left hand, you must grow the beard, homosexuals must be murdered or killed because that's the Sharia. It's not them saying it personally. They're saying that's the law of Islam. What do you want from me? And they have actually said it very clearly. When they have a meeting or they hold a conference, it's attended by 60,000 Muslims at the convention center over the weekend, selling tickets for $80 to $120 so that you can go into all of the kiosks and build your Islam. Whereas the progressives are having a meeting in the Toronto Public Library and there's like 40 people there.
I see. So that
But
really paints an interesting picture because the progressive versus the hardliners is
mhm,
basically what we're seeing here, even
yes,
in Canada. And who do you think is winning the argument at this point? It sounds to me like the hardliners are from the
obviously, yes. It's,
yeah. I
no,
mean,
no question, no question, no question.
so what is I
But
know
if I may interrupt,
yeah.
everyone wants to believe that it's the modern progressive Islam. They keep supporting that when they keep going to their conferences. They keep championing them. All of the universities invite Irshad Manji and Progressive and Zudi Jasser to come and speak. But the Muslims could care less what they say. Or so,
Yeah, in
go ahead.
short,
Sorry.
yeah, in short, they're basically the hardline factions, if you will, if I can call it that, are saying we're not interested in hearing your voice.
Correct. Not only are we not interested in hearing your voice, you're a deviant. You're a deviant pervert. We couldn't care less. And in one instance, Irshad Manji went on a speaking tour. This was when she wrote her book, The Trouble with Islam, or one of her books. She wrote about three books on this topic of the progressive Islam. In Malaysia, they had to ask her to leave the country, and they canceled her engagements because they couldn't, and no hotel wanted her to stay there. Like the Four Seasons and right downtown Karachi or whatever, every hotel said no, no, please don't come here, because they were going to be swarmed by mobs of Muslims who just wanted to tear her apart. And
Yeah,
the
and
police said, we cannot protect you. You got to go. I've come to understand, it's they're not these are not hardliners. They are just mainstream Islam. That's the regular Islam. We in the West
Mhm.
want to say, well, no, those are the extremists. That's the hardliners. Well, no, that's the Muslims. That's Islam.
So what of the hardliners? Are there quote hardliners even in Canada that are even a
Well,
take?
well, there are people that you would consider hardliners. There are people who would be considered terrorists. There are people who would be considered what we would call the not nice Islam, the less favorable Islam. But the
Mhm.
less favorable Islam is Islam. So Zudi Jasser, himself a Muslim, considered a Muslim reformer, he's fond of saying, "My Islam is compatible with the American Constitution."
Mhm.
What's the operative word there?
My,
My Islam.
yeah, my Islam, yeah.
He didn't say Islam. He said my Islam.
Mhm.
Oh, that's different. So he said in his book, Battle for the Soul of Islam in North America, over 2,000 mosques in America preach a radical Islam, while if not directly, what do you call it, directly asking for people to do violence, certainly is one step below that and will lead to violence. And that's 2,000 mosques. That's what he said.
Mhm.
And actually, and he said in another place in the book, or maybe I'm confusing myself a bit, but what he did say very clearly is there is a plethora of mosques that preach a violent Islamism. He said, and he used the word plethora
Okay.
of mosques who preach a violent extremist Islamism. Now, the problem with saying a violent Islamism is, could I say water is wet? Could I say the wet water?
You could say both, really, if you think
Well,
about it.
no, I'm asking a question. Well, yeah, but can water can I? There's no such thing as dry water. There's
No,
no such, so
it's
you
wet.
cannot have wet water because water is water. Water causes wetness.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
But so you can no, well, bring me the wet water. No, I would like prefer some dry water. No, just bring me water. Water can only be water. It can be dirty water, it can be clean water, but you cannot have wet or dry water. Similarly, when it comes to Islam, there is no political Islam because Islam is a political movement at its core.
That's an interesting point. And I take it that in your books, what you're trying to drive at is to explain this to people.
Correct.
It is a political movement. Its ideology is basically rooted in the politic, and its goal is to basically entrench itself in government. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Well, entrench yourself in government. Its goal is
Mhm.
to take over, and become the government.
Which is what
So
has
the
done it.
difference between different fractions being Hizb ut-Tahrir in London, Ontario, and then you have the Sunni Islam, then you have the Hezb, what do you call it, the Muslim Brotherhood. They all have the same goal. They just have arguments about the best way to go about achieving that goal.
Mhm.
Like all Muslims believe that Islam should be the dominant force. Muslims, I mean, all Muslims, every mosque says yes. Islam and Sharia is the law of God. It's good for all times and all places and all people. How we bring about implementing that reality, that's where you have different strategies. Abdul Hamid here in Toronto, and I have the clip, said very clearly, as Muslims, we don't want to take over for the sake of taking over, but we want to, and now I'm quoting, we don't want to take over for the sake of taking over, but we want to take over for the betterment of Canada. So to one respect, to make changes, we have to take over. So in that respect, Islam needs to take over, so to speak.
Mhm.
So it's for the betterment of. In their minds, from the Islamic perspective, they are mandated to do whatever they can to bring about the dominance of Sharia, to make that happen. It's their religious duty to make it happen. And many believe it's to the point it's their religious duty that they should die to make it happen.
Well, violence is definitely in the mix here.
Well, it's many things: violence, politics, dedicating your life to becoming a lawyer so you can fight for the human rights of Muslims. I mean, there's many ways to make that happen. But jihad and struggle and dedicating your life to the cause, whatever that means.
Mhm.
Which, of course, it can mean violence. Yes.
And so, getting out to what you're trying to do in this conversation, what is your goal? What are you wanting to basically reach out to Canadians and say, or in fact, North Americans as a whole, Western society? What is the thing you're wanting
Thank
to
you.
get people to see?
Thank you for that. Good question. Again, ultimately, we live. I'm thinking about a primary premise is: do we care for the what do you call it? The continued survival of Western civilization? If we do, or if some people should say yes to that, then we have to understand that it's not a guarantee that Western civilization will simply survive only because people want it to survive. Because similarly, Constantinople fell, Egypt fell, North Africa fell. So what we have to understand is Islam is contributing to Western civilization and is to Canada. What is it contributing to Canada? What does it want to contribute to the future of Canada? And people need to know. Simple. Okay. If people bothered to know or to learn, sure. I'm saying I, Eric Brazau, given the choice, Western civilization, Islamic civilization, Canada, Pakistan, Canada, Afghanistan, Canada, Saudi Arabia, I prefer Canada. Western civilization, I prefer Western civilization. So that's why many Canadians did not go to Pakistan or to Afghanistan to live there. So we have to ask ourselves, why do we not think that it's natural for a Pakistani man who comes from Pakistan to want to bring his culture here, especially when you have, 500,000 or a million, living in an area, they will contribute more of their culture. So do we want more of a Pakistani culture in Canada? Maybe people do. Maybe Canadians will say, yeah, Christianity, humanity, who cares? Western civilization, it's all the same. Let them all come in. Okay, fine. But are you aware of the consequences of this migration? Are you aware of the consequences of an increased Islamic contribution to our civilization? I would venture most people don't really think much about it.
Uh,
That's why I write my books and do what I do for the last 10 years.
and you paid the price for that. You actually ended up imprisoned
Correct.
for
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, that must have been quite shocking to you.
At the time when it happened, I didn't even know I was committing. See, I did what I did in the middle of the day, in the sunlight of the afternoon, in Eaton Center, at the Dundas Square. didn't cover my face, didn't wear a mask as everybody today is running around wearing masks. I was easily identified, and I had no idea it was a crime. My lawyer, I mean, at the time, many lawyers had never had, nobody was a specialist in this type of law because nobody was ever dealing with this law. Hate crimes, flyers, talking about Islam. Nobody ever did that. And the Supreme Court, which found for the hate crime of Keekstra, this is in the 1980s, or
And the
very
Holocaust of Gaia. Yeah.
exactly. That decision came down that it was a hate crime, but it was a split decision. So it was 5-4.
Mhm.
So only one judge, it would have gone either way. So how am I, Eric Brazau, who's not a lawyer, supposed to know what a hate crime is? I didn't hit anybody, didn't punch anybody, didn't poke anybody in the eye. I wasn't selling drugs. I didn't have a gun, didn't have a knife. I was giving out flyers and talking because I was very angry.
Mhm.
And I thought as a Canadian, I'm allowed to be angry in public. Apparently not.
Do you think that you were unjustly convicted of that?
Yeah, well, many people in Canada didn't even think I was I mean, the whole time that I was in jail and going back and forth to the courthouse and handcuffs and those trucks that drive you to the courthouse and to jail back and forth. You might have
No.
seen those big square trucks
Yes.
that says court services. Well, I was in one of those every week or every second week, to the courthouse back. That was me in there. I kept sometimes I was very depressed. I'm in there with guys who are selling drugs and making $30,000 a month, some of them. And then they get nabbed and they make a couple of phone calls and they have a shoebox under their bed of $50,000 cash that they then get to their lawyer. So everybody that I was in there with is a criminal. Many of them are living as criminals and making good money at it. And I was in there and I spent money. I hired a graphic designer. I was doing this not for my own benefit. I was doing this for what I thought was the benefit of Canada. I saw myself as a soldier for Canada at that time. Of course, what I did, now I understand it was silly, but at the time, that's what I did.
So how has all that experience changed you, and what message would you want to really promote through in this era? Because
Well,
we know it's still going on.
sure. Just because you fight, okay, winning is more important than fighting. And sometimes not fighting and strategizing is more important than just fighting.
Mhm.
And the most important thing is in a fight, you don't want to give the other side a victory.
Yeah, that's what we want to do is we don't want to give that a victory because certainly when we think about what Sharia law says, I mean, I don't know Sharia law. I've never really delved into it. I'll be honest. I'm a
Not
neo.
many people do.
Yeah. Should we really be looking at that? Should we really
No, 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 you don't need to be doing that. All you need to do is read my book. Listen, basically, all we need to know is Muslims are mandated by Islam to wipe out everything that is not Islamic civilization or Islamic religion. End of it. That's all that's necessary.
Mhm.
So everything that you think of, everything that in your mind's eye that is Western civilization, think of anything. It needs to go. It needs to be crushed. It needs to be broken. It needs to be wiped out. All the statues, all Michelangelo statues, Leonardo da Vinci statues, all the paintings in the museums of all the people needs to go. All the musical instruments, wipe it out. All the sheet music, all the Beethoven, the Strauss, the Stravinsky, the waltz, the Vienna, the cotillion balls, the woman, the Shakespeare, asking a woman to dance, and she says, "Oh, thank you very much," and then you lead her to the dance. For that, you forget it. It's wiped out. It's satanic. All of it.
Hmm.
Broken, gone, not going to happen. So what more do you need to know?
Right.
Now, if you can do your own research, or you could just read my book or a book, and all of the quotes are there, all of the footnotes are there. So I'm not making anything up. But most important, forget about what I say. It's what they say. They say
Yes,
that very clearly. And they
which is
say the imam say it in English. So forget about going back to the doctrine and doing, no, they say it last week, last month, last year. I have all the clips of them saying it openly. What more do you need to know?
how do you feel that they're doing this? Are they succeeding at this point in this country to usurp the government? Do you think they're close to getting to that point where they're going to succeed in this, or are they still far away, or where do you see?
Well, again, it's all a question of degrees. So just a few days ago, Amira Al-Gawabi, which is a very important name, it features in my next in this in it features in the book that I released that I sent you, and also in the new book coming up. Amira Al-Gawabi is the minister of Islamophobia. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
We have a ministry of Islamophobia, for real.
That's
Now,
really
it's
bizarre.
it's not it's when I say ministry of Islamophobia, I'm being a little tongue in cheek. It's kind of the ministry of Islamophobia, but she was she was appointed by Justin Trudeau. Her official title is the Special Islamophobia Representative, right?
Oh yes, I
So
remember something about that. Yes.
yeah, so that's just as soon it's going to be a ministry, soon enough.
Hmm.
So she works under the Heritage Canada. Her office budget is 5.6 million for the next 5 years. That's her office budget. Her salary is $160,000 a year. Her overall budget is maybe 600 million a year. Her job is to quell Islamophobia and to alter the narrative, because half of all Canadians have negative opinions of Islam. Her job is to change that. Like, I think what I think, and maybe for example, the government doesn't have a ministry to change my opinion on Buddhism. Nobody asks me what I think about Buddhism
Or Christianity or
or
anything.
Christianity or Balaalism or Zoroastrianism. But for some reason, we're very concerned about Islam in Canada. We have all kinds of questions and we have statistics, and we're very concerned about Islam.
Yeah, I mean, look at what we're doing today. We're talking about Islam, right? So and we consider it quote the hot button topic, but
Right, but the point is, the only reason we're talking about it is because the government keeps pushing programs upon us to tell us that we must accept a religion or an ideology, and we can only have one opinion about this ideology, which is one that they approve of, which is that we must view it as, and Canadians must view it as something that is positive. It may be that it's positive, but it may also be that maybe it's not so positive. Everything has its ups and its downs, or it's good and it's bad, pros and cons, right?
Mhm.
Nothing is just 100% pro, or nothing is just 100% good. As well, Islam is making a very concerted effort to change textbooks right across Canada, in museums, etc., to to position Islam as a foundational element of Canadian civilization.
which is
It's not going to happen tomorrow, but that's
it's
the
creeping
goal.
in. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
ultimately that's where it has to go.
yeah. It's creeping in, is what you're saying.
Well, what many do not want to accept, excuse me, is non-belief in Islam from the perspective of Islam is aggression against Islam.
Hmm.
Non-belief is an aggression, or can be an aggression anyhow. So if someone says, "Hey, brother Clifford, you look like a nice guy," he comes and he talks to you, he tries to convince you to become a Muslim. That's
Mhm.
what's called dawah. It's called the call to Islam. At some point, the call to Islam stops because you are now rejecting Islam. And
Mhm.
you know everything you need to know. I've explained everything. You must accept Islam. If you don't accept Islam, now you are being a stubborn person and you have no reason to reject Islam. Therefore, you are now my enemy.
Mhm.
It can turn very quickly. So right now in North America, in Canada, Islam is still doing what's called dawah. They're called because they're also a minority. So when they're the minority, they have to call people to Islam.
Mhm.
Now, remember the guy who was beheaded in France, a teacher?
Vaguely.
Samuel Paty, French teacher, was beheaded. Okay. He showed some cartoons in his class. This happened 3, 4 years ago. It was very gruesome. It was a big story. Not all of the Islamic leaders said that what this teacher did by showing those cartoons was horrible, and that the Muslim who beheaded him, should not have done it because now is not the right time. They didn't say that beheading the teacher was wrong. No, it was wrong in the sense that it wasn't the good time to do it because Islam and Muslims are a minority. So when you're in a minority, you cannot do such things.
But if you're in the
You,
majority, you would be able to.
well, yeah, you see the subtlety there. They never said that beheading a teacher who's alive is wrong, which is a pretty gruesome thing. It's not an
Yes.
easy thing to behead someone. It takes a lot of cutting and sawing and to behead someone with a knife, by the way, not with an axe.
Mhm.
So, what more do you need to say? And again, all of the clips are there. I have them all.
And it's definitely something we really need to seriously look at. How do people reach out to you and continue this conversation? Because there's absolutely a need to do so. What's the best way for people to find you?
Well, you can go to Fight Islamophobia
Mhm.
because I run an organization called fightislamophobia.ca where I reach out to potential right wingers or Islamophobes. So before they do something stupid, I reach out and I try to talk to them to
Mhm.
show them there's a better way to channel your energies.
Mhm.
So you can reach out to me there. We have what do you call it, a contact page, or you could just reach out to my email, ericbrazau@gmail.com.
Okay. And of course, there's the books.
Then
What's
there's the
the
books, Amazon, or you can, or you'll enjoy if you go to ericbrazau.com, not Gmail. So there's eric@gmail.com. That's the email, but forget that. I get too many emails. But if you go to ericbrazau.com, you could either comment on that or you can get the book.
Perfect. Well,
Yes.
it's this has been enlightening. I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us.
I'm glad to cheer you up.
I don't know if I'm sure up, but I'm certainly uh maybe a little alarmed, maybe a little like, wow, okay, maybe we need to really dig into this somewhat, but understand it definitely.
Well, but Clifford, what I would like to leave you with is I realize that look, we got the election, we got the economy. There's so many things pulling at us all the time. There's so many issues to deal with, right?
Right, absolutely.
But if you don't have a civilization, if you don't have a culture, if you're not here as a country, then who cares? Do you know what used to be the Byzantine Empire?
No, I do not. I have
Okay,
been.
again, I mean, it's amazing. Turkey used to be Constantinople. It was conquered in 1452 by the Muslims. It was Christian. It was the Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. It fell. It was the Ottoman Empire. There's a
Oh,
reason why Islam and Christianity were, you know, mortal enemies for like 1400 years.
Mhm.
Now, we are letting Islam into our civilization. Do people realize what it is exactly we're letting into our civilization? Now, I leave you with this. Say you have somebody in your town and he's one guy, he's a member of the Hells Angels. But the Hells Angels club is 60 miles down the road or 200 miles down the road somewhere, but he has a small cottage in your neighborhood. Okay, who cares, right? One guy. But when the Hells Angels come and start building a clubhouse right next door to your house, that might be concerning. But you're not concerned with maybe one Hells Angels guy. Because one guy alone can be a very nice guy, correct?
Yes.
He's a nice guy. He plays the violin, he plays the guitar. But when you're surrounded by 100 of them, now they start to act in the way that they start to be. That's all. So we need to kind of appreciate because it took a lot of time to build Canada and it took a lot of effort to build Western civilization. And it doesn't take very long for it to fall.
A timely warning for sure. I think.
Clifford,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you. It's been good.
A timely warning for sure. Check out Eric Brazau's pages and books and the like. We'll make sure that we're going to put that in the show notes. I really, again, want to thank you, Eric, for taking time out to talk about this. This is a really, really interesting topic, and we could go on for hours, but we can't do that today. But
At some point, we've said everything that needs to be said. Not much more. Other than we'd be spinning around in a circle,
yeah,
rehashing the same. But it comes down to that, right?
yeah, absolutely. We need to be forewarned, and for that, we need to be educated about what's really going on. Thanks again, Eric. I'll definitely
Most
get this up
my pleasure.
preferred. And
Thank you very much, Clifford. See you later. Cheerio.
cheerio.
Bye bye.
Take care. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.